Kate Brennan's hands shook as she struck the match. 6 months, 2 weeks, 3 days since they buried Daniel. 6 months of lighting this lantern on the barn roof every sunset, a signal for help that never came. Tonight the wind howled cruel, trying to kill the flame, like it had killed everything else. She cupped the glass chimney, watched the wick catch. The town said she was mad. Let them talk. Someone had to remember. Someone had to refuse to forget. The light flared bright against the winter darkness. Her promise burned with it. Before we begin, if you're drawn to stories of courage, second chances, and justice in the untamed West, subscribe to this channel. Stay until the end to see how one woman's grief became a battle cry, and comment below with your city so I can see how far Kate's story travels. Now let's begin. Cole Hartley saw the light 3 nights running. He reined his horse on the ridge above the valley, watching that solitary barn glow like a fallen star. Late February cold cut through his coat sharp enough to make breathing hurt. Below a small homestead huddled against the wind, and on the barn roof, impossibly, a lantern burned. 15 miles he'd ridden today surveying land for the railroad. 15 miles of frozen earth and empty sky. That light was the only human sign for hours. It pulled at something in him he'd thought long dead. Cole lifted his field glasses. Through the wavering lens, he watched a woman climb down from the barn roof lantern still burning behind her. She moved with the careful deliberation of someone operating on the edge of exhaustion. Young, he thought. Alone, certainly. The wind tried to knock her sideways. She braced and kept walking. He should ride on. Railroad camp waited another 10 miles west. But his horse was tired, and that light nagged at him like an unanswered question. Cole made camp on the ridge. No fire, just his bedroll, and the vast, indifferent stars. The lantern burned below until past midnight, steady as a heartbeat. When it finally went dark, Cole found he'd been holding his breath. Morning brought him into Clearwater, Wyoming territory. Population maybe 301, bank, 2 saloons, a general store that doubled as post office. Cole tied his horse outside the mercantile and went in for coffee and information. The place smelled of sawdust and coffee and the sharp chemical bite of photographic supplies. A handful of women clustered near the fabric counter, voices low but carrying. 6 months now. One said, an older woman in a severe gray dress. Still doing it every night. It ain't natural, another agreed. Daniel's dead and buried. Lighting that lantern won't bring him back. Maybe she's simple, the first woman said. Grief can break a mind. Cole approached the counter where a thin man with nervous hands was weighing out flour. Morning. Coffee and whatever you've got for breakfast. Biscuits and ham 20 cents. The shopkeeper said, not meeting Cole's eyes. Cole paid, took his plate to a bench by the window. The women's conversation continued quieter now but still audible. Someone should talk to her, for the child's sake if nothing else. You talk to her then, Margaret. See how far that gets you. Cole ate slowly, piecing together the story. A widow, a child, a nightly ritual that had the town talking. He told himself it wasn't his business. He had a job, a deadline, and a brother waiting in Cheyenne who'd finally agreed to meet after 3 years of silence. He finished his coffee, paid, and walked out into the cold morning. The widow came to town an hour later. Cole saw her from across the street loading supplies into a battered wagon. She wore a dark blue dress, mended carefully at the seams, and a wool shawl that had seen better years. Dark hair pulled back severe, face pale but composed, like she'd learned to hold herself together through sheer will. A girl sat in the wagon bed, maybe 9 years old, watching the street with enormous wary eyes. She wore a coat 2 sizes too big, likely handed down or borrowed. The widow paid for her goods at the mercantile, counting out coins with precision. The shopkeeper took her money without a word. No pleasantries, no small talk. She thanked him anyway, voice quiet but clear. Cole watched her load flour sacks, a small bag of cornmeal coffee sugar wrapped in brown paper. Careful purchases, nothing wasted. Her movements spoke of calculations. He recognized the arithmetic of survival when money runs thin. She climbed into the wagon, took up the reins. The wheel groaned under the weight as she released the brake. Cole heard the crack before he saw the damage. The front axle split, dumping the wagon forward at a dangerous angle. The girl cried out, grabbing the wagon rail. The widow caught her with one arm, held her steady, while the wagon settled into broken immobility. For 3 long seconds, nobody moved. The widow sat there, arm around her daughter, staring at the broken axle like it was a final judgment. Then she climbed down, helped the girl down, and knelt to examine the damage. People walked past, averted eyes, careful steps that took them wide around the broken wagon. Cole crossed the street. "Axles split clean through," he said, kneeling beside her without asking permission. "You got a spare?" She didn't look at him. "No. Hardware store might have one." "Can't afford it." Her voice was flat, factual, no self-pity in it. Cole examined the brake. Clean split, like the wood had been weak for months, and finally gave up. "I can make a temporary repair. Get you home at least." "I didn't ask for help." "No, ma'am, you didn't, but I'm offering it anyway." She looked at him, then really looked. Her eyes were dark gray, the color of winter storms, and held nothing soft. "Why?" "Because your wagon's broke, and you've got a child sitting in the cold." "People in this town don't help me, mister. They have their reasons. I'm not from this town." Something flickered in her expression too quick to name. "You will be soon enough. Then you'll hear the stories, and you'll wish you'd kept riding." Cole pulled his tool roll from his saddlebag, selected a length of iron strap, and a handful of rivets. "I reckon I'll take that chance." He worked in silence, aware of her tension beside him, the way she held herself like someone expecting a blow. The girl watched from the wagon bed, signing something with her hands. The widow signed back quick, fluid gestures that spoke of long practice. "She's deaf," the widow said quietly, not looking at him. "Lost her hearing to scarlet fever 2 years back." "I know some sign," Cole said, focused on the repair. "Learned it in the war. Had a sergeant who couldn't hear artillery anymore after Shiloh." The woman's hands stilled on the wagon rail. Cole finished the iron strapping, tested the axle. It would hold barely if she drove careful. He stood, wiped his hands on his trousers. "Thank you," the widow said. The words sounded like they cost her something. "You're welcome." Cole tipped his hat to her, then to the girl who signed something that made her mother's mouth twitch toward a smile. "She says you're the first person who's looked at her instead of through her in 6 months. Cole signed back to the girl, slow and careful. "Nice to meet you. Drive safe." The girl's face transformed pure surprised joy, and she signed something rapid that Cole only half caught. "She wants to know if you'll come for supper," the widow translated, and now there was alarm in her voice. "You don't have to. She's just excited to meet someone who can talk to her." Cole looked at the woman's face, the exhaustion carved into it, the pride warring with desperate loneliness. He looked at the girl who was bouncing slightly in the wagon bed, hope written across every line of her small body. He thought about the railroad camp, the cold beans and hard coffee waiting. He thought about that lantern burning alone in the darkness. "I'd be honored," Cole said, "if it's not too much trouble." The widow hesitated so long he thought she'd refuse. Then she nodded once, sharp. "Sunset. Follow the north road 5 miles, you'll see the place. Barn's got a light on the roof." "I've noticed," Cole said quietly. Her eyes snapped to his, sharp and defensive. "Everyone's noticed. That's not the same as understanding." "No, ma'am," Cole agreed. "It's not." She climbed into the wagon, took up the reins. The girl waved at Cole, grinning. He waved back, watched them roll slowly out of town, the repaired axle groaning but holding. Behind him, a voice cut through the cold air. "You made a mistake, friend." Cole turned. A man stood on the mercantile steps, mid-50s expensive wool coat boots, polished to a high shine despite the muddy street. He had the look of someone accustomed to being obeyed, the easy confidence of power, long held. "Don't believe we've met," Cole said. "Henry Blackwell. I own the bank, the hotel, and most of the land between here and the railroad line, including the mortgage on that widow's property." "That a fact." Blackwell descended the steps, came close enough that Cole could smell his pomade. "Kate Brennan's husband died 6 months ago. Unfortunate accident, or so the sheriff ruled. Since then, she's been living on borrowed time and borrowed money." "That light she burns every night? That's not mourning. That's accusation." "Accusing who of what?" Blackwell's smile never reached his eyes. "Ask around town. You'll hear stories. Woman's unstable, filling her daughter's head with fantasies about murder and conspiracy. The decent people of Clearwater have tried to help her, but she refuses to see reason. Reason being that she can't run that homestead alone. I've made her fair offers for the property, more than fair considering its condition. But she insists her husband was murdered for that land, that I somehow orchestrated it." Blackwell shook his head, the picture of patient bewilderment. "It's sad, really. Grief can twist a mind." Cole kept his voice level. "And you're telling me this why?" "Because you seem like a decent man who made a charitable gesture. I'm warning you as one gentleman to another that Kate Brennan is trouble. Men who get close to her have a habit of meeting bad ends. Her husband's not the first. There was a farmhand 3 years back tried to court her before she married Daniel. Found dead in a ravine, neck broken. Some said it was an accident. Others—" Blackwell shrugged eloquently. "I'd hate to see you become another tragedy in her collection." "Appreciate the concern," Cole said flatly. "But I'm just having supper with a widow and her daughter, nothing more." "Of course." Blackwell stepped back, still smiling. "Enjoy your evening, Mr. Hartley, Cole Hartley." Something shifted in Blackwell's expression, too quick to catch. "Hartley. That name's familiar. You wouldn't be related to Thomas Hartley, would you? Works for the Railroad Survey Office?" Cole's jaw tightened. "My brother." "Excellent man. Very accommodating in his assessments. I'm sure you'll be the same." Blackwell tipped his hat. "Good day, Mr. Hartley. And do be careful on those northern roads. Dangerous country after dark." Cole watched him walk away, everything in the man's posture radiating satisfied confidence. People stepped aside for Blackwell on the boardwalk, respectful nods and murmured greetings. Power recognized and deferred to. Cole went back to his horse, mind working. Thomas working for Blackwell's railroad interests. Kate Brennan's husband dead under suspicious circumstances. A town unified in treating one woman like a contagion, and that lantern burning every night a signal, or a promise, or maybe both. He told himself to ride away. This wasn't his fight. He had enough ghosts without collecting other people's. But that girl's face kept returning to him, the pure joy at being seen, being acknowledged. And Kate's eyes holding storms and accusations and a refusal to surrender that reminded him of things he'd lost. Cole mounted up, turned his horse north. The homestead appeared as the sun touched the horizon, exactly as Kate had said 5 miles out on a road that was more hope than reality. The barn stood first, weathered gray wood that had seen decades of hard use. Behind it, a small cabin with a stone chimney trailing smoke. Corrals held maybe 20 head of cattle, thin but alive. A chicken coop, a root cellar, a vegetable garden sleeping under winter mulch. And on the barn roof, already lit against the gathering darkness, a lantern burned. Cole dismounted in the yard. The cabin door opened before he could knock. Kate stood framed in lamplight, her daughter hovering behind her, practically vibrating with excitement. "Mr. Hartley," Kate said. No smile, no warmth, but she stepped aside. "Come in." The cabin was small, but scrupulously clean. One room divided by function, a cooking area with a wood stove, a table with 4 mismatched chairs, Two narrow beds against the far wall separated by a curtain. The walls held practical things, tools and supplies. Nothing decorative except a single framed photograph on a shelf beside the stove. A man in his early 30s, dark hair, laughing eyes, one arm around Kate, who looked younger and unbroken. Both of them squinting into sunlight, happy. Cole looked away from the photograph, found Kate watching him with that wary, defensive expression. "That's Daniel?" she said quietly. "In case you were wondering." He looked happy. He was. She turned away, began setting plates on the table. "We both were." The girl tugged Cole's sleeve, signed rapidly. He caught maybe half of it. "Lily wants to know if you like venison stew," Kate translated. "It's all we have and it's mostly potatoes, but—" "Smells wonderful," Cole said honestly. The cabin was warm, the stew simmering, and something in him that had been frozen for years began very slightly to thaw. They ate in near silence, Lily signing occasionally to her mother, Kate answering in sign, and sometimes in voice, for Cole's benefit. The stew was thin, but seasoned, well stretched with potatoes and wild onions. They ate carefully, making it last, and Cole understood without being told that supplies were calculated down to the day. After Lily signed something urgent to her mother. "She wants to show you her drawings," Kate said, resignation in her voice. "Fair warning, she's persistent." Lily produced a stack of paper precious and carefully saved covered in charcoal sketches. They were good, surprisingly skilled for a child. Horses' landscapes, her mother working in the garden. And one that made Cole's chest tighten. A man and woman standing together, a child between them, a house with light in every window. "She draws what she remembers," Kate said softly. "And what she hopes." Lily signed something else shy now, and pushed a blank paper toward Cole with a piece of charcoal. "She wants you to draw something," Kate said. "You don't have to." Cole picked up the charcoal. He wasn't an artist, but he'd sketched survey maps for 3 years, learned to see land in lines and shadows. He drew quickly the view from the ridge, the valley below the barn, with its light burning like a small defiant star. Lily's face went still and serious as she studied it. Then she signed something that made her mother's breath catch. "She says you've been watching," Kate said, voice tight. "For 3 nights." Cole met her eyes. "Yes, ma'am. I have." "Why?" "Because I saw someone who wouldn't quit. Someone who kept fighting when the whole world went dark. I respect that." Kate stood abruptly, began clearing plates with sharp movements. "You don't know anything about me, Mr. Hartley, about what I'm fighting or why." "Then tell me." She froze at the wash basin, hands gripping the edge. Lily watched her mother with worried eyes. "Daniel didn't die in an accident," Kate said finally. Each word came hard, like pulling arrows from a wound. "He was murdered, shot twice in the back on his own land, his horse driven off, made to look like he'd been thrown and dragged. The sheriff took one look and called it misadventure. Case closed." "But you don't believe that!" Kate turned, and her face held something beyond grief. Something cold and bright and dangerous. "I found the casings. 45 caliber, 2 of them 20 feet from where they claimed he fell. I showed them to the sheriff. He said Daniel could have been carrying them, dropped them when he fell." "That's horseshit," Cole said quietly. "Yes." Kate's voice was steady now, hardened by months of being dismissed. 2 weeks before he died, Henry Blackwell offered to buy our land. Daniel refused. "We have water rights to Clearwater Creek, you see. The railroad wants to run a spur line through this valley. They need water for the steam engines. Blackwell's been buying up every property with creek access one way or another." "One way or another," Cole repeated, understanding. "Daniel was the holdout. We'd built this place from nothing, broke our backs on this land. He wouldn't sell. So 3 days after his last meeting with Blackwell, my husband rode out to check the fence line and never came home." Lily had gone very still, watching her mother sign the story simultaneously for her benefit. The girl's small hands clenched into fists on the table. "The lantern," Cole said. "That's why you light it." Every night at sunset, Daniel and I had a signal. If either of us got into trouble, we'd light the lantern on the barn roof. Help would come from the nearest ranch, the Morrisons, about 8 miles east. They'd see it and ride over. Kate's voice fractured slightly. The night he died, I lit it as soon as his horse came back without him. I kept it burning until past dawn. The Morrisons never came. Why not? Kate's laugh was bitter. Because Blackwell bought their property 2 months earlier. They moved to Colorado. I didn't know. Daniel and I had been so focused on our own troubles we'd lost track. So I lit a signal that no one saw, and Daniel died alone on our land, and by the time I found him the next morning it was too late. The cabin was silent, except for the fire crackling in the stove. So you keep lighting it, Cole said. Every night. So they know I haven't forgotten. So they know I'm still here, still watching. Maybe it's mad. Maybe I am what they say I am. But I won't stop. I won't let them erase him. Lily signed something fierce, emphatic. She says we won't let them take our home, Kate translated. And she's right. This is our land. Bought legal, worked hard, paid for with Daniel's life. I'm not leaving. Cole was quiet for a long time, weighing his words. Your mortgage. How far behind are you? Kate's face shuddered. That's not your concern. How far? 3 months. Blackwell holds the note. He's been patient, he says, waiting for me to come to my senses and accept his generous offer. Her voice dripped acid on the word generous. Next month he files for foreclosure. I have until spring thaw to come up with $400 or vacate. $400. 6 months of wages for a ranch hand. An impossible sum for a widow working alone with a deaf child. What about family? Anyone who could help? Daniel's parents died before we married. Mine disowned me when I married a homesteader instead of the banker's son they'd chosen. Kate smiled without humor. Ironic, isn't it? They wanted me to marry wealth. Now wealth wants my land. Cole stood, moved to the window. Outside, full darkness had fallen. The lantern on the barn roof burned steady, its light reflecting off the snow in a small circle of defiance. I'm a surveyor for the railroad, he said quietly. My brother's a senior engineer. We're mapping the route through this territory. He heard Kate's sharp intake of breath. If you're here to pressure me... Cole turned. I'm here to tell you that I've seen preliminary surveys for 3 different routes through this valley. Only one requires water rights from Clearwater Creek. The other 2 run 5 miles south using the reservoir system. The route through your land is the most expensive by far. They'd have to blast through Granite Bridge 2 ravines grade at 15% for 4 miles. Kate stared at him. Then why insist on this route? That's an excellent question. Cole met her eyes. And I think the answer has more to do with your water rights than the railroad's needs. Someone wants this land bad enough to run track through solid rock rather than go around. Blackwell, Kate breathed. Maybe. Or someone else using the railroad as cover. Either way, it smells wrong. Cole pulled on his coat. I should go. I've imposed enough. Wait. Kate stepped forward, something desperate breaking through her careful control. You believe me? Yes, ma'am. The sheriff doesn't. The marshal doesn't. The whole town thinks I'm a grief-mad woman seeing conspiracies and accidents. But you believe me. I know what institutional corruption looks like, Cole said quietly. Spent 3 years watching it in uniform, and I know what someone looks like when they're telling the truth against all odds. Lily signed something urgent to her mother. She wants to know if you'll come back, Kate said. Her voice was carefully neutral, but something in her eyes betrayed how much the answer mattered. Tomorrow. For supper again. Cole looked at them, this woman and child against the world, burning their small light in the darkness. He thought about his brother in Cheyenne, the meeting he'd been avoiding. He thought about the safe thing, the smart thing, which was to ride away and forget what he'd heard tonight. Instead, he said, I'd like that. Kate nodded once sharp. Good, because if you're serious about believing me, I have 3 months of evidence I've collected. Documents. Testimonies people gave me in private but won't repeat publicly. Timeline of land purchases. And those shell casings I mentioned. You've been building a case. I've been preparing for war. Kate's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I just didn't have an ally until tonight. Cole smiled, and it felt strange on his face, like a muscle he'd forgotten he had. Then tomorrow we'll look at your evidence, and we'll figure out what we're up against. He tipped his hat to Kate, signed goodnight to Lily, who was grinning so hard she looked like she might float. Outside he mounted his horse and rode back toward the ridge where he'd camped the previous nights. Behind him the lantern burned on the barn roof, but tonight it didn't look lonely. Tonight it looked like a declaration. Cole made camp, built a small fire, and stared at the flames. He'd come to Wyoming to survey land and reconcile with a brother he hadn't seen since the war ended. Instead, he'd found a widow with a deaf daughter, and a murdered husband, and a battle that wasn't his fight. Except it felt like his fight. Maybe it always had been. He thought about Blackwell's warning about men who got close to Kate Brennan meeting bad ends. He thought about his brother Thomas, who apparently was accommodating in his survey assessments. And he thought about that lantern burning steady through the darkness, a promise kept night after night, a refusal to forget, or forgive, or surrender. In the valley below, the light flickered once, then held. Cole fed another stick to his fire and settled in to watch. Tomorrow he'd start asking questions. Tomorrow he'd look at Kate's evidence and decide if her war was justified. Tonight, he was just a man on a ridge drawn to a light in the darkness, hoping that what he'd found was worth the trouble it would surely bring. The wind picked up cold and sharp, carrying the distant cry of wolves, or maybe something closer. Cole checked his rifle, pulled his bedroll tighter. Kate Brennan had lit her signal for 6 months, calling for help that never came. Tonight, finally, someone had answered. He just hoped he was strong enough for what came next. Cole woke to gunshots echoing across the valley. He rolled from his bedroll, rifle in hand, before his eyes fully opened. Dawn was just breaking gray light, washing the prairie in shades of ash. Below, near Kate's homestead, orange muzzle flashes punctured the dimness. He was mounted and riding hard before conscious thought caught up with instinct. The scene materialized through the morning mist like something from a nightmare. 3 riders circled Kate's cattle, firing pistols into the air, driving the herd toward the creek with deliberate chaos. Kate stood in her yard, rifle raised, shouting words Cole couldn't hear over the distance and gunfire. One rider broke from the group, charged straight at her. Cole's horse ate up the ground, hooves pounding frozen earth. He saw Kate's rifle buck, saw the rider's hat fly off, but the man kept coming. Kate was working the lever action, chambering another round, when the rider's horse slammed into her, sent her sprawling into the dirt. Cole fired once into the air as he cleared the last rise. The sharp crack of his Winchester cut through the chaos. The 3 riders wheeled toward him, saw him coming hard with rifle ready, and made a quick calculation. They spurred their horses toward the tree line, driving maybe 15 head of Kate's cattle with them. Cole could chase, or he could check on Kate. He chose Kate. She was pushing herself up when he reached her, blood streaming from her nose, rifle still clutched in one hand. Lily stood in the cabin doorway, signing frantically, face white with terror. "I'm all right," Kate said, though she swayed when she stood. "Go after them. Those cattle are worth $50 a head." "They're already gone." Cole dismounted, caught her elbow when she stumbled. "And you're not all right." "I've been worse." "That's not the reassurance you think it is." Cole signed to Lily that her mother was okay, watched the girl's small body sag with relief. "Inside. Let's see the damage." Kate's nose wasn't broken, but it was bleeding fierce. Her lip was split where she'd bit it in the fall. Cole fetched water from the well, helped her clean up, while Lily hovered close, hands shaking, as she signed questions too fast for Cole to follow. "She wants to know if they'll come back," Kate translated, pressing a wet cloth to her face. "Tell her the truth." Cole signed slowly to Lily. "Maybe, but I'm staying. You're safe." The girl signed something back that made Kate's eyes close for a long moment. What did she say? She said everyone who promises to protect us ends up dead. Kate's voice was flat. She's 9 years old, and that's what she believes. Cole knelt so he was eye level with Lily. He signed carefully. I'm hard to kill. Ask anyone who tried during the war. Lily almost smiled, but the fear didn't leave her eyes. Outside, the remaining cattle were scattered across the near pasture, spooked but settling. Cole counted maybe 20 head left. 15 gone was a devastating loss for an operation this size. This was Blackwell, Kate said, standing at the window. Her hands gripped the sill hard enough to whiten her knuckles. His men. Same tactics he used on the Morrisons before they sold. Stampede the stock, shoot a few head to salt the loss, drive them off your land. Insurance doesn't cover theft if you can't prove it was theft and not just strays wandering. You recognize any of them? The one who ran at me was riding a paint horse. White blaze down the face, 3 white socks. Kate turned to face him. That's the horse I saw tied outside Blackwell's barn 2 days after Daniel was shot. Cole felt something cold and sharp settle in his chest. You're certain? A man forgets faces, Mr. Hartley. A widow remembers horses. Cole, he said, if we're going to war together, you might as well use my name. Kate studied him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. Cole. And I'm Kate, not ma'am, not Mrs. Brennan, just Kate. All right then, Kate. He moved to the table where she'd spread papers the night before, documents and timelines and careful notes in feminine handwriting. Show me everything. We're not waiting until tonight. We start now. They worked through the morning while Lily drew pictures at the far end of the table, her way of processing fear into something concrete. Kate had been thorough, painfully so. She had dates of every land purchase Blackwell had made in the valley over 18 months. Prices paid always just slightly above market value, except for 3 properties that had sold for well below value after sudden misfortunes. The Johnsons lost their barn to fire 3 weeks before they sold, Kate said, pointing to an entry. The Chengs had their well poisoned, killed 6 head of cattle before they figured it out. The Talbots, their eldest son, got beaten half to death in town. Nobody saw who did it. All of them sold within a month of their trouble. And Daniel? Kate pulled out a hand-drawn map marked with X's and dates. These are documented incidents over the past 2 years. Fires, thefts, accidents. Every single one happened to property owners who refused initial offers from Blackwell. Daniel was the 4th death. The others were ruled accidental, just like his. Cole studied the map, seeing the pattern emerge like bone through water. The sheriff's seen this. Sheriff Moss is Blackwell's second cousin. He looked at my evidence for about 30 seconds and told me grief was making me see patterns in coincidence. Kate's voice went hard. Then he suggested I might be happier somewhere else, somewhere I could start fresh without painful memories. Generous of him, wasn't it? Kate pulled out another document, this one official looking with stamps and seals. This is the survey report my husband requested 6 weeks before he died. Independent surveyor out of Cheyenne, man named Patterson. He mapped 3 possible railroad routes through this valley. The route through our property was ranked dead last in feasibility due to terrain and construction costs. Cole picked up the report, read through technical language he understood too well. Patterson's assessment was thorough and damning. The route requiring Kate's water rights would cost nearly double the southern alternatives and take twice as long to complete. So why insist on this route? That's what Daniel asked. He rode to Cheyenne to meet with Patterson, get clarification. That was 3 days before he died. Kate pulled out a telegram worn from repeated handling. This came the day after Daniel's funeral. From Patterson's daughter. Her father died in his sleep 2 days after meeting with Daniel. Heart attack, the doctor said. He was 43 years old and healthy as a horse. Cole set down the telegram, feeling the web tighten. 2 men dead within days of each other, both connected to railroad surveys that don't make economic sense. 3 men, Kate corrected quietly. The ranch hand I mentioned, the one who died before I married Daniel. His name was Samuel Chen, brother to the family that sold after their well was poisoned. Samuel worked for the Railroad Survey Office. He died 6 months after telling me he'd found irregularities in land assessments. The cabin went very quiet. "You're not cursed," Cole said finally. "You're dangerous. You're a threat to someone making a lot of money from very illegal activities, and they've spent 2 years trying to eliminate that threat." "So what do I do?" Kate's voice cracked slightly. "The sheriff won't listen. The marshal's office sent one deputy who talked to Blackwell and rode away satisfied. I have evidence, but no one with authority will look at it. And every day I stay here, I'm risking my daughter's life." Lily signed something sharp and emphatic. "She says she's not leaving," Kate translated. "This is her home." Cole looked at the girl, chin raised in defiance identical to her mother's, and felt something shift in his chest. "Then we make them look at the evidence. We go over the local authorities' heads straight to the territorial capital. We file a formal complaint with the Land Office, the Marshal Service, and the Railroad Commission simultaneously. Make enough noise that they can't ignore it. Blackwell will know the moment I leave town. So we don't tell him you're leaving. You stay here business as usual. I ride to Cheyenne, file the complaints, bring back federal authorities to investigate." Cole met her eyes. "I'm a surveyor with the railroad. My testimony carries weight, and I have access to my brother's survey records, which I'm guessing will show some very interesting discrepancies with Patterson's independent assessment." Kate was quiet for a long moment, hope and fear warring in her expression. "Your brother, the one Blackwell said was accommodating. You think he's involved?" "I think Thomas is very good at not asking questions when the pay is generous." Cole's voice went flat. "But he's still my brother, and if he's signing off on fraudulent surveys, I need to know. This could destroy your relationship with him. We haven't had a relationship in 3 years." Cole stood, moved to the window. Outside, the sun was climbing, burning off the morning mist. "We fought in the war together, different units but same battles. I saw things, did things. Thomas saw worse, did worse. When it ended, we both scattered, couldn't stand being in the same room with our own memories. This job was supposed to be our reconciliation. Work together, rebuild what we'd lost." He laughed without humor. "Turns out maybe we lost it for good reason." Kate stood beside him close enough that he could feel her warmth in the cold cabin. "I'm sorry. Don't be. Some things break and don't mend. But some things are worth breaking yourself to protect." He looked down at her. "Your daughter. Your home. Your husband's memory. Those are worth it." "And what are you protecting Cole Hartley?" The question landed like a fist. Cole was quiet for a long time before answering. "The idea that doing the right thing still matters. That honor isn't just a word we carved on monuments to dead men. That sometimes you can save people even if you couldn't save the ones before." Kate's hand found his on the windowsill. Brief pressure, then withdrawn. "Then we're fighting for the same thing." A knock at the door shattered the moment. Cole's hand went to his pistol. Kate crossed to the rifle, leaning by the door. Lily scrambled under the table, practiced movement that broke Cole's heart. "Mrs. Brennan?" A woman's voice, elderly, breathless. "It's Iris Talbot. Please, I need to talk to you." Kate opened the door to reveal a woman, maybe 70, gray hair escaping a hastily pinned bun shawl clutched tight against the cold. Her face was lined deep with years of sun and worry, and tears tracked through the dust on her cheeks. "Mrs. Talbot." Kate pulled her inside. "What's wrong?" "My grandson, James, the one who was beaten last year." The old woman's hands shook. "They came for him again last night, broke into our house, dragged him from his bed, beat him in our own yard while we watched. Said if we testified about anything next time they'd kill him." Kate's face went white. "Testified about what?" "About what I saw the day your husband died." Mrs. Talbot collapsed into a chair, years of held secrets spilling out. "I was berry picking up on the North Ridge. I saw 3 riders follow your Daniel out to the fence line. Saw them shoot him off his horse, saw them fire into the ground around his body to make it look like he'd been dragged. Then they drove his horse toward your homestead and rode off south. I knew I should tell someone, but I was afraid. Still am. But after what they did to James..." She broke down, shoulders heaving. Kate knelt beside her, gripped her hands. "Tell me exactly what you saw. Every detail." Mrs. Talbot's voice shook but held. 3 men. One on a paint horse with a white blaze that was the leader. Another on a big bay gelding man had a scar down his left cheek. I saw it when he turned. Third one was younger, nervous-looking on a dun mare. They shot your Daniel twice in the back close range. Murder, plain and simple. Would you testify to this in court? They'll kill my grandson. They'll kill him anyway if we don't stop them. Kate's voice was gentle, but relentless. Mrs. Talbot, you're not the first person they've threatened, and you won't be the last. The only way this ends is if enough people stand up at once that they can't silence us all. The old woman looked at Kate, then at Cole, then at Lily, peeking out from under the table. You're going to fight him. Really fight him. Yes, ma'am, Cole said. We're riding to Cheyenne to file federal complaints, but we need witnesses willing to testify on record. People who've seen what Blackwell's done, what his men have done. Others are scared, Mrs. Talbot said. The Johnsons left Wyoming entirely. The Chengs won't speak to anyone, but there's a few who might talk if they knew they weren't alone. She straightened her shoulders, decision made. I'll testify, and I'll talk to the others, see who else has courage left. Kate stood, pulled the old woman up with her. This will get dangerous. I'm 73 years old, child. Everything's dangerous at my age. Might as well go down fighting. After Mrs. Talbot left, Kate turned to Cole. We leave tomorrow. Tonight I need to talk to people quietly. See who else might be willing to stand witness. I'll come with you. No. Kate's voice was firm. You're an outsider, and your brother works for the railroad. If Blackwell's men see us together, they'll put pieces together too fast. I can move through this community, have conversations. You can't. She was right, and Cole hated it. Then I stay here with Lily. Keep watch. She can come with me. She's safer in town during daylight than alone on this homestead. And tonight... Kate's jaw set. Tonight, I light my lantern like always. Let them think nothing's changed. Let them think I'm still just a mad widow burning light for ghosts. They spent the afternoon preparing. Kate packed documents into a leather satchel, waterproofed and ready for travel. Cole checked his weapons, cleaned his rifle, counted ammunition. Lily moved between them, helping where she could, fear and determination mixed in her small face. Late afternoon, Kate and Lily rode to town in the repaired wagon. Cole watched from the barn roof, standing exactly where that lantern burned each night. From here, he could see for miles the valley spreading out in all directions. He understood why Kate chose this spot for her signal. Any rider within 5 miles would see it clear. He also understood that anyone watching would know exactly where she was every night at sunset. Cole climbed down, checked the perimeter. He found tracks from that morning's raid, followed them to the tree line where they vanished into a maze of trails. Professional work covering their route. But one horse had thrown a shoe, left a distinctive mark in the soft earth near the creek. Paint horse based on the hoof size and stride length. White blaze, 3 white socks, now with 1 front shoe missing. Cole filed the information away, headed back to the cabin. He built up the fire, set coffee on, and waited. They returned at sunset. Kate's face drawn, but eyes bright with something like hope. 7 families, she said, lifting Lily down from the wagon. 7 willing to testify. 3 more who'll provide written statements, but won't appear in person. It's not much, but it's a start. It's plenty. Cole handed her coffee, black and strong, the way she'd taken it the night before. That's 10 documented cases of intimidation, property damage, and violence. Pattern of racketeering. Federal prosecutors love patterns. Kate drank deep warmth seeping back into her face. Mrs. Chen told me something interesting. Her husband kept records of every irregular surveyor report he'd seen while working for the railroad. Names, dates, property descriptions. He hid them before he died, told her where in case anything happened. She's going to retrieve them tonight, give them to me tomorrow. That's a smoking gun if the records show your land was deliberately misassessed. More than mine. Mrs. Chen says there are at least 15 properties that were overvalued for purchase, but undervalued for taxation, all in Blackwell's name now. If that's not fraud, I don't know what is. Cole set down his coffee, mind working. We need to leave day after tomorrow, first light. That gives you time to collect Chen's records, say your goodbyes, arrange care for your stock while we're gone. Mrs. Talbot offered to watch the place and the cattle. Her grandson James wants to help prove he's not afraid anymore. Good. Cole moved to the window. Full darkness had fallen. Better light your lantern. Kate hesitated, hand on the door. You really think we can win this? I think we have to try. And I think you've been trying alone for 6 months. Now you've got help. He met her eyes. We leave in 2 days, we ride hard. We file every piece of paper that makes this official and unstoppable. And then we come back here and we hold this ground until federal law shows up to defend it. And if Blackwell figures out what we're doing before we get to Cheyenne, then it gets interesting. Cole checked his rifle one more time. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight we keep the pattern normal. You light your lantern, I stay out of sight, Lily sleeps safe. Kate nodded once, sharp and decisive. She bundled into her coat, took the lantern from its shelf. Come on, Lily, help me with the ladder. Cole watched from the window as mother and daughter crossed the yard to the barn. Kate climbed to the roof, Lily steadying the ladder below. The match flared bright in the darkness. Then the lantern caught warm golden light, pushing back the night. Kate stood on the barn roof for a long moment, silhouetted against her burning promise. Then she climbed down, took Lily's hand, and walked back to the cabin. Inside, she shook snow from her coat and hung it by the door. Lily signed something that made her smile. What did she say? Cole asked. She said the light looks different tonight. Brighter maybe, or maybe just less lonely. Cole smiled. Smart kid. They ate dinner, quietly venison stew, stretched with more potatoes, cornbread, that Kate had somehow made from their dwindling supplies. Lily chattered in sign language about her day in town, the few children who'd been kind to her, the shopkeeper who'd given her a peppermint stick when her mother wasn't looking. After Kate put Lily to bed, behind the curtain sang something soft and low that Cole didn't recognize. He sat by the fire, pretending not to listen, but the sound wrapped around something in his chest and squeezed. When Kate emerged, she looked exhausted, but not defeated. Coffee, Cole offered. Please. They sat on opposite sides of the table, the cabin quiet except for Lily's soft breathing and the fire's crackle. Can I ask you something? Kate said finally. Anything. Why are you really doing this? And don't tell me it's about honor or doing the right thing. There's something else. Something personal. Cole was quiet for a long time, turning his cup in his hands. 3 years ago, I was mustering out of the Army. My unit was in Missouri, transitioning back to civilian life. There was a woman there, Martha Hayes' widow, with 2 young sons. Her husband had died at Gettysburg. She was being pressured by a local railroad man to sell her property. Same tactics, different territory. Threats, intimidation, mysterious accidents. What happened? I was there for 3 weeks. I saw what was happening, knew it was wrong. But I was tired, Kate. Bone tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. I'd spent 4 years fighting, watching men die, dealing death. I just wanted to be done with it all. So I told myself it wasn't my fight, that she had neighbors who'd help, that the law would sort it out eventually. Did it? Her barn burned down 2 weeks after I left. Both boys were inside helping with evening chores. They got out, but the younger one, Timothy, 8 years old, he had burns over half his body. Died 3 days later in agony. Cole's voice had gone flat, empty. Martha sold the property for nothing. Last I heard, she'd lost the other boy to an orphanage, couldn't care for him alone. Kate reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? I saw the pattern. I knew what was coming. I could have stayed, could have helped. Instead, I walked away because I was tired. Cole looked up at her. I'm not walking away this time. I'm not leaving you and Lily to face this alone so I can tell myself it wasn't my fight. It is my fight now. I'm making it my fight. Cole, you asked why I'm doing this. That's why. Because I have to believe that this time I can be strong enough. That this time I won't fail. His hand turned under hers, gripped tight. And because when I saw that lantern burning, when I saw you standing alone against the whole damn world, I saw someone worth fighting for. Worth fighting with. Kate's eyes glistened in the firelight. I'm scared. Me too. If this goes wrong, if they come for us before we reach Cheyenne, then we fight. And if we go down, making so much noise that someone has to pay attention. Kate laughed, shaky, but real. You're either very brave or very stupid, Cole Hartley. Most people say both. She squeezed his hand once more, then withdrew. We should sleep. Long day tomorrow. Take the bed. I'll take the floor by the door. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Anyone comes through that door tonight, they go through me first. Something passed between them, wordless understanding. Kate nodded. Rose moved to her bed. She lay down fully clothed except for Boots' rifle within arm's reach. Cole spread his bedroll by the door, pistol on one side, rifle on the other. Through the window he could see the lantern burning on the barn roof, steady and bright. He watched it until his eyes grew heavy, until the day's exhaustion pulled him under. His last thought before sleep was that the light really did look different tonight. Less like a cry for help, more like a declaration of war. Morning came too soon and too cold. Cole woke to find Kate already up, coffee made, Lily dressed, and eating cornmeal mush at the table. He pushed himself up, joints protesting, and accepted the cup Kate handed him. Mrs. Chen's coming this morning with those records, Kate said quietly. After that, I need to ride to the Morrison place, let them know what we're planning. I thought they'd moved to Colorado. Different Morrisons. These are cousins settled on the East Range about 6 months ago. They don't have much, but they're honest people. If anything happens to us, they've agreed to take Lily. Cole's chest tightened. Nothing's going to happen. But if it does, I need to know she'll be safe. That she won't end up in some territorial orphanage where they'll see her deafness as a burden instead of just part of who she is. Lily was watching them, reading their lips, her small face serious. She signed something to her mother. She says she's not going to the Morrisons because we're all going to be fine, Kate translated. And she's coming to Cheyenne with us because someone needs to make sure we don't do anything stupid. Cole signed directly to Lily. You're right. We need someone smart along. The girl grinned, signed back something rapid that he missed. She says you're learning sign language too slowly, and she'll teach you properly on the ride to Cheyenne, Kate said, smiling despite everything. A horse approaching fast killed the moment. Cole was at the window, rifle ready. Kate positioned herself between the door and Lily, her own weapon drawn. They waited tense as drawn wire until the rider materialized through the morning mist. Mrs. Chen riding hard, a bundle clutched to her chest. Kate threw open the door. What's wrong? The old woman practically fell from her horse, gasping. They know. Blackwell's men. They came to my house this morning, ransacked it, looking for my husband's papers. I'd already retrieved them last night, thank God, but they tore the place apart. They're going house to house, anyone who talked to you yesterday. Dear God. Kate took the bundle, heavy with documents. Are you hurt? Shaken, nothing more. But Kate, they're coming for you next. They know you're planning something. You have to leave now before they arrive. Cole was already moving, saddling horses, throwing supplies into packs. How much time do we have? An hour, maybe less. They were heading to the Talbots when I left. Kate thrust the document bundle into a saddlebag, grabbed her prepared satchel. She signed rapid orders to Lily, who ran to pack her few belongings. In less than 5 minutes, they were ready to ride, lives compressed into what 2 horses could carry. Kate turned to Mrs. Chen. Tell the others to scatter. Don't testify, don't resist. Just get to safety until this is over. And you? We're riding to Cheyenne. We're ending this. They mounted up, Kate pulling Lily up behind her. Cole led the way north toward the ridge trail, away from town, away from the obvious southern route. Behind them, the homestead sat silent and waiting. The lantern remained on the barn roof, unlit in the morning sun, its vigil interrupted for the first time in 6 months. They rode hard until the homestead was out of sight, then stopped to breathe the horses and plan. Blackwell will have men watching the main roads, Cole said. We take the high trail through the mountains, follow the Clearwater River north before cutting east. It adds 2 days to the journey but keeps us off predictable routes. 2 days sleeping rough in February. Kate looked at Lily, who signed something brave but couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. We'll freeze. We'll survive, and we'll make it to Cheyenne. Cole met Kate's gaze. Trust me. She held his eyes for a long moment, then nodded. I do. God help me, but I do. They rode north as the sun climbed 3 people against an entire corrupt system, carrying evidence that could destroy a powerful man or get them killed trying. Behind them, the valley spread out vast and indifferent. Ahead, mountains rose sharp against the winter sky, promising both shelter and danger. Kate looked back once at her home disappearing in the distance. The barn where she'd lit her nightly promise. The cabin where her husband had died and her daughter had been born, and her life had both ended and refused to end. Then she turned forward and rode hard, because sometimes survival meant leaving behind everything you were trying to protect in order to save it. The war had begun. The mountain trail disappeared under 2 feet of snow by midday. Cole dismounted, led his horse by the reins through drifts that came up past his knees. Behind him, Kate struggled to keep her mare moving. Lily clinging to her back, small arms wrapped tight around her mother's waist. The wind cut through their layers like they were wearing nothing at all. How much farther to the river crossing? Kate's voice barely carried over the wind. 3 miles, maybe 4? Cole stopped. Let the horses breathe. His lungs burned with cold air. We're making half the time I'd hoped. Lily signed something against her mother's back. Kate's face went tight. She says her feet are numb. Cole moved to them, pulled Lily down. The girl's boots were soaked through ice crystallizing on the leather. He stripped off his own dry socks, wrapped them around her feet over the wet ones, tied them secure with strips of cloth from his pack. You'll freeze, Kate protested. I'll keep moving. She can't. Cole lifted Lily back up. The girl signed thank you, teeth chattering too hard to do it properly. He signed back, stay strong. Almost there. They pushed on. The sun, what little they could see through the clouds, started its descent toward evening. Cole knew they needed shelter before full dark, or the cold would kill them as surely as Blackwell's men. His mind worked through options, all of them bad. The sound of hoofbeats behind them stopped his heart. Cole spun, rifle coming up. Through the blowing snow, 3 riders materialized like ghosts closing fast. He recognized the lead horse immediately. Paint with a white blaze missing its front left shoe. Ride, Cole shouted to Kate. Get Lily out of here. Kate didn't argue. She spurred her horse forward, crashing through the snow toward the tree line. Cole fired once over the riders' heads, buying seconds, then mounted and followed. The trees offered some cover, but not enough. The riders knew this country moved through it with practiced ease. Cole heard them spreading out, flanking, cutting off escape routes. He pushed his horse harder, felt the animal struggling beneath him. Kate's mare stumbled, went down in a drift. Lily flew clear, rolled, came up signing frantically. Kate was trapped under the horse leg, pinned. Cole reached them as the 3 riders converged from different angles. He dismounted, hauled Kate free, felt her gasp of pain as her leg came loose. The mare struggled up, favoring her left foreleg. Lame. Get on my horse, Cole ordered, lifting Lily up first. Now, Kate. You can't. Now. The riders were 50 yards out and closing. Cole fired twice more, saw one man duck, heard another curse. Kate mounted behind Lily, kicked the horse forward. Cole grabbed the lame mare's reins, used her as a shield, while he backed toward the trees. The lead rider, the man on the paint horse, reined up 20 feet away. He was big, scarred face, cold eyes that held no mercy. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, surveyor. Blackwell just wants the woman and her papers. You can ride away, no harm done." "That's a generous offer," Cole said, rifle steady on the man's chest. "I'm declining." "Your funeral." The man gestured. His companions spread wider, trying for angles. Cole fired, worked the lever, fired again. The riders scattered, returned fire. A bullet whined past Cole's ear so close he felt the displacement. Another punched through his coat sleeve, grazed skin, without hitting bone. He ran. The trees swallowed him thick, pine offering cover. He could hear Kate and Lily ahead, his horse crashing through underbrush. Behind him, the three men dismounted, came on foot. Smarter than he'd hoped. Cole found Kate sheltering behind a massive deadfall. Lily pressed against her, both of them shaking. He slid in beside them, checked his ammunition. 4 rounds left in the rifle, 6 in his pistol. Against 3 men with repeating rifles and probably more ammunition than they'd need. "There's a cave system about a mile north," Cole said quietly. "My brother and I used to explore it as boys when our father worked surveying contracts in this territory. If we can reach it before they catch us, we can lose them in the tunnels. If they don't just wait us out at the entrance." "They might, but at least we'll be out of this cold." Cole signed to Lily. "Follow close. Stay quiet. Be brave." The girl signed back, "Always." They moved as quietly as possible through the snow and deadfall. Behind them, Cole could hear the men calling to each other, coordinating their search. Professional hunters, patient and methodical. Kate's injured leg slowed them. She bit back sounds of pain, but Cole saw it in the way she moved. Weight favoring her right side, each step costing her. Lily helped as much as a 9-year-old could, supporting her mother's elbow, signing encouragement. The cave entrance appeared like salvation, a black mouth in the granite cliff face, half hidden by pine branches. Cole had found it 15 years ago, exploring with Thomas during one of their father's survey trips. The main chamber was large enough for the horse and went deep enough that they'd be invisible from outside. "Inside, quick!" Cole led the horse in first, felt the temperature rise immediately as they moved beyond the wind's reach. The cave smelled of earth and animal musk, but was blessedly dry. Kate collapsed against the stone wall, legs stretched out, breathing hard. Lily curled against her, seeking warmth. Cole moved to the entrance, listened. Voices carried on the wind, closer now. "Tracks lead this way. Can't have gone far. Woman's injured. Find them before Blackwell hears we lost them." Cole pressed back into the shadows, rifle ready. He watched the paint horse pass within 30 feet of the cave entrance, its rider scanning the rocks. The man's face was visible in profile now. The scar Mrs. Talbot had described ran from temple to jaw, puckered and old. The rider moved past without seeing them. Cole waited, counting his heartbeats until the voices faded to nothing. Then he waited longer until he was certain they'd moved on. Only then did he risk moving deeper into the cave to where Kate and Lily huddled together. "They're past us," he said quietly. "For now." Kate nodded, teeth chattering. "How long do we wait?" "Until dark. Then we move again, different direction. Make them think we doubled back toward Clearwater." Cole pulled supplies from his saddlebag, distributed what little food they had. Hardtack jerky, a canteen half frozen. "Eat. We need the energy." They ate in silence, exhaustion settling over them like a physical weight. Lily signed a question to her mother. "She wants to know if we're going to die out here." Kate translated, voice breaking slightly. Cole knelt in front of Lily, made sure she could see his face in the dim light filtering from the cave mouth. He signed slowly, carefully. "No. We survive. We fight. We win." Lily studied his face, searching for truth. Whatever she found there seemed to satisfy her because she nodded, signed back. Okay, I believe you. Cole settled against the wall beside Kate, close enough to share warmth. Outside, the wind howled like something alive and furious. Inside, the cave held them in stone arms, temporary sanctuary from both weather and pursuit. "Tell me about your brother," Kate said after a while. "The one we're riding to confront." Cole was quiet for a long moment. "Thomas is 3 years younger than me. Always was the smart one, the one who could charm anyone, talk his way out of trouble. I was the serious one, the one who followed rules and expected the world to be fair." He laughed without humor. "War taught us both different lessons. What happened between you?" "Shiloh. Second day of fighting. I was with the Ohio Volunteers. Thomas was with an Illinois regiment that got chewed up by Confederate artillery. I found him after the shooting stopped, pulling wounded men from a mass grave they'd been dumped in. Some were still alive barely. Thomas was digging with his bare hands, trying to save anyone he could." Cole's voice went distant, seeing something Kate couldn't. "There was a boy, maybe 16, gut shot, crying for his mother. Thomas held him while he died, promised him he'd write to his family, tell them he'd been brave. After the boy stopped breathing, Thomas looked at me and said, 'What's the point of any of this?' I didn't have an answer then, still don't. That's when things changed between you. That's when we both changed. Thomas started taking risks, volunteering for suicide missions, acting like he wanted to die, but was too stubborn to let the enemy do it. I started shutting down, doing my job mechanically, refusing to feel anything because feeling meant breaking. By Appomattox, we were strangers who happened to share blood." Kate's hand found his in the darkness. "And now you're about to ask him if he's part of a conspiracy that killed my husband. Now I'm about to find out if my brother's the man I thought he was, or someone I never knew at all." Cole's fingers tightened around hers. "Either way, I'm not letting Blackwell win, even if it costs me the last family I have." "That's a high price." "Some things are worth any price." Cole looked at her shadows, hiding most of her face, but not the strength in her eyes. "Your daughter, your home, justice for Daniel, those are worth it." "And what about you, Cole? What are you worth?" The question hit harder than expected. "I don't know anymore. Maybe I'm trying to find out." Lily stirred between them, signing something sleepy. Kate pulled her daughter close, hummed that low, soft melody Cole had heard before. The girl's eyes closed, exhaustion finally claiming her. "What's that song?" Cole asked. "Something my mother used to sing. Old Scottish ballad about a woman waiting for her love to return from sea. He never does, but she keeps watching the horizon anyway." Kate's voice caught. "I always thought it was romantic when I was young. Now, I think it's just sad." "Maybe it's both." "Maybe." Kate rested her head against the stone wall. "Cole, if something happens to me before we reach Cheyenne, nothing's going to happen. But if it does, promise me you'll get Lily to the Morrisons. Promise me you'll make sure those documents reach federal authorities. Promise me Daniel's death won't be for nothing." Cole turned to face her fully. "I promise. But you're going to be there to see it through. We both are." "How can you be so certain?" "Because I've lost before. I know what it feels like to give up, to let the darkness win, and I'm not doing it again." His voice went fierce. "We're getting out of these mountains. We're reaching Cheyenne. We're burning Blackwell's empire to the ground. And then we're going home to your homestead, and you're going to light that lantern, not because you're mourning, but because you're celebrating. That's how this ends." Kate's eyes glistened. "You make it sound possible." "It is possible. It's just not easy." Cole released her hand, moved back to the cave entrance to keep watch. "Sleep if you can. We move in 3 hours." Kate settled against the wall, Lily curled in her arms. Cole watched them for a moment, this woman and child who'd become worth fighting for, worth dying for if it came to that. Then he turned his attention to the darkness outside, rifle across his knees, waiting for either safety or trouble. Both eventually came. The trouble arrived first, just after full dark. Cole heard them before he saw them, the three riders returning, moving slowly through the trees. They doubled back, searching the areas they'd already covered. Smart and persistent. Cole retreated deeper into the cave, woke Kate with a hand over her mouth. Her eyes snapped open, instantly alert. He signed to them both. Quiet. They're close. Outside, the riders stopped almost directly in front of the cave entrance. They could have gone to ground anywhere in these rocks, one voice said. We could search for days and not find them. Blackwell wants them dead or captured by morning. The scarred man's voice cold and flat. Those are our orders. We don't go back empty-handed. So what do you suggest? We can't track in the dark. We wait. They have to come out eventually. Cold or hunger will drive them toward the lowlands. We set up watch points on the likely routes, take them when they move. And if they freeze to death in the meantime, then we recover the bodies and the documents. Either way, Blackwell gets what he wants. The voices moved away, planning their ambush points. Cole waited until he was certain they'd gone, then turned to Kate and Lily. Both were wide awake now, fear written across their faces. They're setting up ambush points on the trails down, Cole whispered. We can't go that way. Then how do we get out of these mountains? Cole thought hard, pulling up memories from 15 years ago. These caves connect to a tunnel system that runs under the ridge. Thomas and I explored maybe half of it before our father forbade us from going deeper. But I remember it came out somewhere on the eastern slope near the river valley. If we can navigate through, we come out behind their ambush points. In complete darkness, through unmapped caves, with a child and limited supplies. Kate's voice was tight. That's suicide. Staying here is guaranteed death. The tunnel is just possible death. Cole met her eyes. I'm not going to lie and say it's safe, but it's the only option that gives us a chance. Kate looked at Lily, signing the situation. The girl's face went pale, but she signed back something emphatic. She says we go through the caves, Kate translated. She's not afraid of the dark. Brave girl, Cole said, and meant it. They gathered their supplies, abandoned the horse with enough food and water to last several days in hopes that if they died in the tunnels, at least the animal would survive. Cole fashioned torches from pine branches and strips of cloth soaked in what little lantern oil they had. 3 torches total, maybe 2 hours of light if they were careful. The tunnel entrance was at the back of the cave, partially collapsed, but wide enough for them to squeeze through single file. Cole went first, torch held high, testing each step before committing his weight. Behind him, Kate followed with Lily on her back, the girl's arms wrapped tight around her mother's neck. The tunnel angled down sharply, walls closing in, until Cole had to duck to avoid hitting his head. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness, echoing oddly. The air smelled of minerals and earth and ancient silence. How far did you and your brother get? Kate's voice echoed strangely. Maybe a quarter mile before we hit a shaft that was too deep to climb down safely. But I remember Thomas throwing rocks into it, hearing them hit bottom after about 5 seconds. That means maybe a 100-foot drop. If there's a way around it, we can keep going. And if there's not, then we go back and take our chances with Blackwell's men. They moved in silence, conserving breath and energy. The tunnel twisted, branched, rejoined itself in patterns that made no logical sense. Twice, Cole had to backtrack when passages dead-ended in collapse, or stone too solid to pass. Time lost meaning in the absolute darkness beyond their small circle of torchlight. Lily signed something against her mother's back. She hears water, Kate said. Running water, not just dripping. Cole stopped, listened. The girl was right. Somewhere ahead, water flowed with purpose. The underground river. My father's survey notes mentioned it. If we can reach it, we can follow it downstream to where it surfaces on the eastern slope. How do we cross it? Carefully. The river chamber opened suddenly, the tunnel giving way to a space so large their torchlight couldn't find the ceiling. Water rushed past, maybe 10 feet below them, black and fast and loud enough to drown out conversation. A natural stone bridge spanned it, worn smooth by millennia of water spray. Cole tested the bridge, found it solid, but treacherously slick. One at a time. Hold to the wall, don't look down. He went first, inching across back, pressed to the stone wall. The bridge was maybe 3 feet wide, worn to a rounded edge that offered no purchase. Halfway across his foot slipped. He caught himself heart-hammering and kept moving. Kate came next. Lily still on her back, the girl's face buried against her mother's shoulder. Cole watched from the far side torch held high to light their way, holding his breath with every step. Kate's injured leg gave out 3 feet from the end. She went down hard on one knee, Lily crying out silently, arms locked around her mother's neck. Kate scrambled for purchase on the wet stone, sliding toward the edge. Cole dropped the torch, lunged forward, caught Kate's wrist. Her weight pulled him half over the bridge edge, water spray soaking them both. He hauled back muscles screaming, pulled her up and forward, until they both collapsed on solid ground. Lily was sobbing against her mother's signs, incoherent with fear. Kate held her daughter rocking slightly, breath coming in ragged gasps. "I've got you," Kate whispered. "I've got you, baby. We're safe." Cole retrieved the torch before it could roll into the water, checked their remaining oil. Maybe 40 minutes of light left. "We need to keep moving." Kate nodded, pushed herself up. Her leg was worse now, barely supporting weight. Cole offered his shoulder, and she took it without pride, too exhausted for dignity. They followed the river chamber downstream, walking a narrow ledge that ran along the water's edge. The sound was deafening, isolating them in their small bubble of light and movement. Lily had gone very quiet, face pressed against her mother's back, enduring. The exit came without warning, the tunnel suddenly opening onto night air and falling snow. They stumbled out into a small ravine, the underground river emerging to join a larger stream that flowed toward the valley. Behind them, the mountain rose dark and forbidding. Ahead, the eastern slope descended through pine forest toward distant lights. Civilization. Safety. Maybe. Cole checked the sky, found the North Star, oriented himself. "We're about 8 miles north of where we need to be, but we're out of the ambush zone. If we can reach the main road by dawn, we can flag down a freight wagon or mail coach." "I can't walk 8 miles, Kate said flatly. "My leg's done." "Then I'll carry you." "Cole, we didn't come through hell just to quit now." Cole knelt, helped Lily down, then positioned himself for Kate to climb on his back. "Up, that's an order." Kate climbed on, arms around his neck, leg hooked over his hip. She was lighter than he'd expected, worn down by months of grief and struggle, and not enough food. Lily walked beside them, small hand gripping Cole's coat, refusing to be left behind. They walked through the night, through snow that turned to sleet, and back to snow, through cold that made breathing painful and exhaustion that made each step a small victory. Cole's legs turned to lead, then to fire, then to something beyond pain that was almost transcendent. Kate's arms around his neck became the only thing keeping him upright. Lily stumbled alongside, 9 years old, and refusing to quit, signing encouragement. She was too tired to complete properly. Dawn found them on the main road, collapsed in a heap beside the frozen ruts, too exhausted to move when they heard wagon wheels approaching. A freight hauler stopped, an old man with kind eyes and a cargo of mining equipment. He took one look at them and asked no questions, just helped them into the back of his wagon, covered them with canvas against the cold. "Cheyenne," Cole managed, through cracked lips. 12 hours south," the hauler said. "Rest now, I'll get you there." Cole pulled Kate and Lily close, shared warmth under the canvas as the wagon rolled south. Behind them, the mountains held their secrets and their dead. Ahead, Cheyenne waited with federal law and the possibility of justice. Kate's hand found his squeezed once. "We made it." First part anyway. Cole's eyes were already closing, exhaustion winning. Still have to convince federal authorities to act. Still have to prove our case. Still have to survive Blackwell's response when he realizes what we're doing. "One impossible thing at a time," Kate murmured. One impossible thing at a time, Cole agreed. They slept wrapped together against the cold, while the wagon carried them toward whatever came next. Lily slept between them, her small hands signing dreams against her mother's coat. Cole's last conscious thought was that they looked like a family, broken and desperate, but still fighting, still refusing to surrender. The mountains fell away behind them, and ahead the future waited, uncertain but possible. Cheyenne looked like salvation until Cole saw his brother standing on the steps of the railroad office. The freight hauler dropped them at the edge of town, pressed $2 into Cole's hand despite protests, and rolled on toward his delivery. Cole stood on the muddy street with Kate leaning heavily against him and Lily clutching her mother's coat, staring at the building where Thomas waited. His brother looked prosperous. New suit-polished boots, gold watch chain visible across his vest. 3 years had filled him out, softened the gaunt, hungry look the war had carved into both their faces. Thomas was talking to 2 men in expensive coats, gesturing with papers, laughing at something one of them said. "That's him," Kate asked quietly. "That's him. He looks successful." "Yeah." Cole's jaw tightened. "He does." They crossed the street slowly, Kate's injured leg forcing them to move at a hobble. People stepped around them, faces averted from their obvious distress. Mud-covered, exhausted, dangerous-looking, in ways polite society recognized and avoided. Thomas saw them when they were 10 feet away. His face went through a series of expressions too fast to catalog, ending on something between shock and anger. "Cole, what in God's name?" Thomas descended the steps, took in Kate and Lily. The weapons Cole carried, the desperation written across all of them. "What happened?" "We need to talk. Privately." "I'm in the middle of a meeting." "Now, Thomas." Something in Cole's voice made his brother's objections die. Thomas turned to the 2 men, made apologies, promised to continue their discussion later. They left, shooting curious glances at Cole's group. "My office is inside," Thomas said. "Come on." The railroad office was warm and smelled of tobacco and expensive wood polish. Thomas led them to a private room, shut the door, crossed immediately to a cabinet, and pulled out a bottle of whiskey. He poured 3 glasses, handed them out. "Drink first, talk after. You all look half dead." Cole drank, felt fire spread through his chest. Kate sipped hers, coughed, sipped again. Lily signed a question. "She wants water," Kate translated. Thomas stared at the girl's hands, then at Kate. "She's deaf. Scarlet fever 2 years back." Kate's voice carried a warning edge. "She understands more than most hearing people." "I didn't mean..." Thomas found a pitcher, poured water into a clean glass, handed it to Lily with exaggerated care. The girl took it, signed, "Thank you," studied him with those enormous, solemn eyes. Cole set down his empty glass. "We need federal marshals, territorial investigators, and a lawyer who specializes in land fraud. And we need them today." Thomas sat heavily in his desk chair. "Start from the beginning." So Cole did. He laid out Kate's story. Daniel's murder, Blackwell's pattern of intimidation and violence. The fraudulent survey reports, the 3-day run through the mountains with hired guns on their trail. He pulled out Mrs. Chen's documents, spread them across Thomas's desk alongside Kate's carefully compiled evidence. Thomas listened without interrupting, face unreadable. When Cole finished, silence filled the office like smoke. "You're accusing Henry Blackwell of conspiracy, murder, and racketeering," Thomas said finally. "I'm not accusing. I'm proving." Cole tapped the documents. "It's all here. Pattern of violence, fraudulent land assessments, witness testimony. 15 families terrorized off their property, so Blackwell could consolidate water rights for a railroad spur that makes no economic sense unless someone's profiting from the land deals themselves. And you think I'm involved?" Thomas's voice went flat. "I think you signed survey reports that contradict this independent assessment." Cole pulled out Patterson's report, the one that had gotten Daniel killed. I think you assessed Kate's property as essential for the rail line when 3 better routes exist. I think you've been accommodating in your professional judgments, just like Blackwell said. Thomas stood, moved to the window, back rigid. You rode all the way here to call me a criminal. I rode all the way here to give you a chance to explain before federal authorities start asking the same questions. Cole, Kate said quietly. Maybe we should... No. Thomas turned and his face held something raw and angry. You want an explanation? Fine. Yes, I signed reports recommending the Clearwater route. Yes, I was paid consultation fees by Blackwell's development company. Yes, I knew those fees were generous compared to standard rates. He laughed bitterly. You know what I didn't know? That people were dying. That families were being terrorized off their land. That the man paying me was a murderer. You didn't ask questions, Cole said. I didn't want to know the answers. Thomas's voice cracked. After the war, after everything we saw and did, I just wanted to be done with it. Done with choosing sides, done with moral calculations, done with trying to figure out if I was serving justice or just serving. Blackwell offered me money to assess land. I assessed it. That's all I did. That's all. Cole's anger flared hot. You falsified technical reports that gave a killer legal cover for stealing people's homes. You took blood money and told yourself it was just business. And what were you doing while I was compromising my integrity? Thomas shot back. Drifting from job to job, running from your own demons, pretending you'd left the war behind while it ate you alive from the inside. Don't stand there and judge me, brother. We both made our peace with different devils. Lily signed something sharp that made Kate's eyes widen. She says you're both idiots, Kate translated. And she's right. We don't have time for this. Thomas, you made mistakes. Own them and help us fix them. Cole, your brother's standing here not running, which means he's not as far gone as you feared. So both of you shut up and start acting like we're on the same side. Both men stared at this widow who'd just called them idiots. Then Thomas laughed short and sharp. I like her. She grows on you, Cole admitted. Thomas sat back down, rubbed his face with both hands. All right, I'll help, but you need to understand what you're up against. Blackwell has friends in the territorial government, the land office, half the judges in Wyoming. He's been building his network for years. Going after him means going after a dozen corrupt officials who'll protect each other. So we go higher, Kate said. Federal jurisdiction. This crosses territorial lines, involves interstate commerce through the railroad. That makes it federal business. Smart woman. Thomas looked at her with new respect. There's a U.S. Marshal named Samuel Grant stationed here in Cheyenne. He's clean, one of the few. If anyone can authorize an investigation, it's him. But he'll need ironclad evidence before he moves against someone as connected as Blackwell. We have ironclad evidence, Cole said. On paper. But Blackwell will have answers for everything, legal cover, witnesses who'll swear he's innocent. You'll need more than documents. You'll need someone inside his operation willing to testify. The 3 men who chased us through the mountains, Kate said. The one with the scar. He's the man I saw right away after Daniel was shot. If we can identify him, connect him to Blackwell. His name is Marcus Webb, Thomas said quietly. Former Army scout discharged for excessive violence against civilians during the Indian campaigns. Blackwell hired him 2 years ago as head of security for his land development company. Official job is protecting property and equipment. Unofficial job is exactly what you're describing. Cole leaned forward. You know this, and you didn't question it. I suspected. I didn't know. Thomas met his brother's eyes. There's a difference, even if you don't want to admit it. I'm good at not seeing things I don't want to see. War taught me that skill well enough. Then it's time to start seeing, Kate said. Her voice was gentle but unyielding. Your brother came to you instead of going straight to the marshal because he still believes in you. Don't make him regret it. Something passed between the 2 brothers, wordless communication built from shared childhood and shared war and 3 years of shared absence. Thomas nodded slowly. I'll take you to Marshal Grant. I'll testify to everything I know about Blackwell's operations, the survey irregularities, the money trail. But after that, I'm done with the railroad. Done with Wyoming. I won't be able to work in surveying again after this breaks. Not when everyone knows I turned on my employer. You'll survive, Cole said. You're good at that. So are you, apparently. Thomas stood pulled on his coat. Let's go ruin some lives. Marshal Grant's office occupied the top floor of the federal building, a stone structure that announced government authority through sheer permanence. They climbed the stairs slowly, Kate's leg forcing frequent stops. Lily stayed close, signing questions about every new sight, processing fear through curiosity. The marshal was a man in his late 50s, gray-beard eyes that had seen enough of human nature to be surprised by very little. He listened to their story for 40 minutes without interrupting, examining documents spread across his desk, reading testimonies, studying survey reports. When Cole finished, Grant sat back in his chair. This is extensive, ambitious, and if true, represents the kind of corruption that destroys faith in territorial law. It's true, Kate said. Every word. I believe you, Mrs. Brennan. The question is whether I can prove it in court. Grant tapped the documents. These establish pattern and motive, but Blackwell will claim coincidence, business competition, unfortunate accidents. I need something that ties him directly to specific crimes. I need witnesses who were present when orders were given, money that changed hands with explicit illegal intent. Marcus Webb, Thomas said. He's the link between Blackwell's official business and his criminal operations. If we can turn him... We can't, Grant interrupted. Webb's been arrested twice on territorial charges, walked both times. Witnesses disappeared, evidence vanished. He's loyal because Blackwell keeps him out of prison. Men like that don't turn unless they're facing something worse than jail. Death, Cole said quietly. Webb was riding with 2 other men when they chased us through the mountains. If Blackwell thinks Webb failed, if he believes Webb let us escape and might be a liability, he might eliminate that liability, Grant finished. Dangerous game you're suggesting. We're already playing a dangerous game. Kate's voice was steel-wrapped in exhaustion. My husband's dead. My home's under siege. My daughter's been traumatized. I'm not interested in safe anymore. I'm interested in effective. Grant studied her for a long moment. You remind me of my late wife. She had that same quality, that refusal to bend, even when breaking seemed inevitable. He stood, moved to a map of Wyoming territory pinned to his wall. Here's what I can do officially. I can authorize an investigation into land fraud in the Clearwater Valley region. I can request audit of railroad survey contracts. I can interview witnesses who've signed statements. That will take weeks and give Blackwell plenty of time to cover his tracks. And unofficially? Cole asked. Unofficially, I can send a telegram to Blackwell informing him that you've filed federal complaints and are under marshal protection. I can mention that we are particularly interested in speaking with Marcus Webb regarding his testimony about the recent incidents. That should make Blackwell nervous about Webb's continued reliability. You're painting a target on Webb's back, Thomas said. Webb painted a target on his own back when he chose violence as a profession. I'm just making sure everyone can see it clearly. Grant returned to his desk. Meanwhile, you 3 stay in Cheyenne under protective custody. I have a safe house, nothing fancy but secure. You rest, recover, let me do the legal work. If Blackwell makes a move against Webb, we'll know he's desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. How long? Kate asked. Give me 3 days. If nothing develops, we proceed with the formal investigation and hope the evidence holds up in territorial court. And if something does develop, then we move fast and hope we're fast enough. Grant pulled out forms, began filling them with precise handwriting. I'll need formal statements from all of you, signed and witnessed. Mrs. Brennan, your testimony about witnessing your husband's murder will be key. Cole, your professional assessment of the survey fraud. Thomas, your insider knowledge of Blackwell's operations. They spent the rest of the afternoon giving statements, recounting details, until Kate's voice went hoarse and Lily fell asleep in a chair, head pillowed on her mother's coat. Thomas excused himself twice, came back each time looking older and more resolved. Evening found them at the safe house, a small frame building on the edge of town, under guard by 2 deputy marshals. The place was clean and warm, with 3 beds and a kitchen stocked with basic supplies. Luxury compared to caves and frozen mountains. Kate collapsed on a bed, fully clothed, asleep, before her head hit the pillow. Cole carried Lily to the second bed, tucked her in with blankets that actually smelled clean. The girl murmured something in her sleep, signed half-formed words against the pillow. Thomas stood in the doorway watching. "She's brave, that kid." "Braver than both of us combined," Cole agreed. "Kate, too. She's good for you." "It's not like that." "Isn't it?" Thomas smiled slightly. "You rode through hell for her, Cole. You're willing to destroy your relationship with me for her. That's either love or something very much like it." Cole had no answer to that. He moved to the kitchen, started coffee from habit more than need. Thomas followed, sat at the small table. "I'm sorry," Thomas said quietly, "for the choices I made, the things I ignored. You were right to confront me. You're helping now. That's what matters." "Is it? Or is it too little too late?" Thomas stared at his hands. "After the war, I thought I could just choose not to see evil. Like if I focused on technical problems, mathematical solutions, I could avoid moral complications. Turns out you can't. Evil finds you whether you're looking for it or not." "We were both running," Cole said. "Different directions, same cowardice. I ran from connections, you ran from consequences. Maybe we're finally done running." "Maybe." Thomas accepted the coffee Cole poured. "What happens after this is over? If we win, if Blackwell goes down, if Kate gets her justice, what then?" Cole thought about the homestead, the barn where a lantern burned nightly, the cabin too small for 3 people, but somehow the right size anyway. "I don't know. Haven't planned that far ahead." "That's not like you. You always had a plan." "War burned the plans out of me. Now I just take each day as it comes. And if one of those days includes a family, a home, a reason to stop drifting." Cole looked toward the bedroom where Kate slept, exhausted and broken and still fighting. "Then I'd be lucky beyond what I deserve." "We all would be," Thomas said. "After what we've done, what we've seen, finding something worth protecting is its own kind of miracle." They sat in comfortable silence, the first they'd shared in 3 years. The coffee steamed between them, terrible and bitter, and somehow exactly right. Outside, snow began falling again, soft and quiet, covering the town in forgetfulness. Morning brought a messenger from Marshal Grant with news that changed everything. Cole read the telegram twice, handed it to Thomas, then woke Kate. "What's wrong?" She was up instantly, reaching for her rifle. "Marcus Webb turned up dead 2 hours ago, stabbed in an alley behind the Lucky Dollar Saloon. Local police are calling it a bar fight gone wrong." Kate's face went pale. "Blackwell killed him." "Looks that way. Grant's telegram says witnesses are conveniently absent, and the body's already been moved to the undertaker. Very efficient for a random murder." Cole pulled on his coat. "Grant wants us at his office within the hour. He's moving forward with arrest today, while Blackwell's off balance." They dressed quickly. Woke Lily explained what was happening through sign language and careful patience. The girl signed a question that made Kate smile despite everything. "She wants to know if the bad man is finally going to jail," Kate translated. "We're going to try our damnedest," Cole signed back. Marshal Grant's office was controlled chaos. Deputies moving in and out, telegrams arriving and departing, maps being marked with arrest locations. Grant stood at the center of it, orchestrating everything with calm authority. "Webb's death gives us probable cause," he said without preamble. "Blackwell had motive and means to eliminate a liability. I've got warrants for Blackwell, his head accountant, and 3 other men identified in your documents as part of his operations. We move in 2 hours simultaneous arrests across the territory." "He'll run," Kate said. "I'm counting on him trying. We've got deputies watching every stage route, every telegraph office, every bank where he might have accounts. If he runs, he proves guilt. If he stays, we have him for questioning under federal authority." "And the families who testified?" Thomas asked. "The ones who went public with their stories. Blackwell will retaliate." "Already protecting them. I've sent deputies to each family offering temporary relocation if they want it. Most are taking it." Grant looked at Kate. "Including the Talbots. Mrs. Talbot asked me to tell you she's praying for you." Kate's eyes closed briefly. "Tell her I'm grateful." "You can tell her yourself after this is over." Grant pulled on his marshal's coat, checked his pistol. "Cole Thomas, you're coming with me to arrest Blackwell. Mrs. Brennan, you and Lily stay here under deputy protection. If this goes bad, I don't want civilians in the crossfire." "If it goes bad, I want to be there," Kate said. "No." Grant's voice allowed no argument. "You've done your part. You survived, you gathered evidence, you testified. Now let the law do its work." Kate looked like she wanted to argue, but Lily signed something that made her soften. "She says she's tired and wants to stay here where it's safe, and she wants me to stay with her." "Smart girl," Grant said. "Listen to your daughter, Mrs. Brennan." They left Kate and Lily under guard, rode through Cheyenne's muddy streets toward the hotel where Blackwell maintained offices. Cole felt tension coiling in his chest, familiar pre-battle nerves. Beside him, Thomas sat rigid in his saddle, facing consequences he'd avoided for months. "You all right?" Cole asked quietly. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." That's all courage is. Doing what's necessary despite being terrified. "When'd you get so wise?" "About 3 days ago, when a widow and her deaf daughter taught me what real strength looks like." Blackwell's hotel occupied the finest corner in Cheyenne, 3 stories of brick and false grandeur. They found him in his office signing papers at a massive desk, looking entirely unconcerned. He glanced up when they entered, registered Grant's badge, smiled slightly. "Marshal, to what do I owe the pleasure?" "Henry Blackwell, you're under arrest for conspiracy, racketeering, intimidation, and suspicion of murder in connection with the death of Daniel Brennan and others." Grant placed the warrant on the desk. "You can come quietly, or you can make this difficult. Either way, you're coming." Blackwell read the warrant without hurry. "This is absurd. Based on what evidence? Based on extensive documentation of your pattern of criminal activity in the Clearwater Valley region, testimony from multiple witnesses and financial records showing fraudulent land transactions." Grant's voice was flat professional. "Stand up, sir. I'll have my lawyers quash this before nightfall." "You're welcome to try, but you'll be doing it from a jail cell." Blackwell stood slowly, straightened his expensive coat. His eyes found Thomas. You did this." "I told the truth," Thomas said. "Something I should have done months ago." "You're finished in surveying. You understand that no one will touch you after this." "Good. I was getting tired of being touched by the likes of you." Blackwell's face twisted with rage, quickly suppressed. "And the woman, Kate Brennan, where is she?" "Under federal protection," Grant said, "along with everyone else who testified against you. You can't touch them, Blackwell. That's over." "Nothing's over until I say it's over." "Actually," Cole said quietly, "it ended the moment Kate Brennan decided to fight instead of run. You just didn't know it yet." They led Blackwell out in handcuffs, the great man reduced to just another criminal doing the perp walk through public streets. People stared, whispered, began to understand that power wasn't permanent, that justice occasionally won. Back at the marshal's office, Kate was waiting with Lily. When she saw Blackwell in custody, something in her face crumbled and rebuilt itself stronger. She stood, walked straight to the man who'd destroyed her life, looked him in the eyes. "My husband's name was Daniel Brennan. Remember it. Because that's the name that brought you down." Blackwell said nothing, but something in his expression flickered. Fear, maybe, or recognition that he'd underestimated this woman from the very beginning. Marshal Grant locked Blackwell in a cell, posted guards sent telegrams to territorial authorities. The machinery of justice ground forward slow but inexorable. Cole watched it happen, felt something like hope stirring in his chest. Outside, evening was falling. Somewhere north in the Clearwater Valley, a homestead waited empty. A barn stood dark without its nightly lantern. But the darkness was temporary now. The light would return different than before, but no less real. Kate found Cole standing at the window, Lily drawing pictures at a nearby table. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For believing me. For staying. For being the help I called for 6 months ago that finally arrived." Cole turned to her. "I should thank you. For showing me that some fights are worth having, that running doesn't solve anything, that courage looks like lighting a lantern every night, even when no one's watching. We make a good team." "Yeah, we do." Lily signed something, held up her drawing. It showed 3 people standing in front of a house light streaming from every window. Above the house, stars filled the sky, and written across the top in careful letters, "Home." Kate's breath caught. Cole felt his throat tighten. "She wants to know if we're going home soon," Kate translated. Cole knelt beside the girl, signed carefully. "Soon. Very soon. And when we do, we'll make sure that light never goes out again." Lily smiled, signed back, "Promise? Promise?" Cole signed. And for the first time in 3 years, he meant it. The trial took 3 weeks, but the verdict took only 40 minutes. Cole sat in the Cheyenne courthouse, between Kate and Thomas, watching the jury foreman stand to deliver judgment. The courtroom was packed, standing room, only half the territory wanting to see if justice was real, or just another pretty word people use to feel better about an unfair world. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant Henry Blackwell guilty. Kate's hand found Cole's, squeezed hard enough to hurt. On her other side, Lily signed something fierce and triumphant. On the charge of racketeering and land fraud, we find the defendant guilty. The foreman continued through 8 counts, guilty on every one. Blackwell stood rigid at the defense table, expensive lawyers flanking him like sentries who'd already lost the battle. His face was stone, but his hands shook slightly, the only sign that he understood his empire had collapsed. Judge Morrison, a territorial appointee with a reputation for fairness, addressed the court. "Henry Blackwell, you have been found guilty of crimes that strike at the heart of law and order in this territory. Your actions have caused death, destruction, and immeasurable suffering to innocent families. This court sentences you to 20 years hard labor at the territorial prison, to be followed by restitution to all victims, as determined by a special master appointed by this court." Blackwell's lawyers immediately began filing appeals, but everyone in the courtroom knew it was over. The evidence had been too thorough, the witnesses too credible, the pattern too clear. Thomas's testimony about fraudulent surveys had been devastating. Mrs. Talbot's eyewitness account of Daniel's murder had been unshakable. And Kate's quiet, determined recitation of 6 months fighting alone against corruption had swayed even the most skeptical jurors. Marshal Grant approached as they left the courthouse. "Mrs. Brennan, Cole, Thomas, well done, all of you." "What happens to the properties Blackwell stole?" Kate asked. "Special Master will review every transaction over the past 3 years. Families who were coerced will have first option to buy back their land at fair prices, using funds from Blackwell's seized assets. It won't undo the trauma, but it's justice of a sort. And the railroad spur through Clearwater Valley. Cancelled. Turns out when you remove the corruption, the southern route makes a lot more economic sense." Grant smiled slightly. "Your water rights remain yours, Mrs. Brennan. No one will be coming for your land again." Kate's eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. "Thank you, Marshal. For believing us when no one else would. Thank you for fighting when it would have been easier to quit. You reminded me why I took this badge. Grant tipped his hat. Safe travels home. All of you. They left Cheyenne 2 days later on a warm April morning that promised spring might actually arrive. Thomas rode with them, his surveying career finished, but his conscience finally clear. The 3 adults took turns carrying Lily when she got tired, and the girl divided her attention between them, equally signing stories about everything they passed. The mountains had shed their snow, revealing green underneath. Wildflowers pushed through dead grass, determined and hopeful. The land remembered how to be generous after all. "What will you do now?" Kate asked Thomas as they made camp the second night. "Where will you go?" "West, I think. California maybe, or Oregon. Somewhere I can start fresh, use my engineering skills for something that doesn't involve lying." He looked at Cole across the fire. "What about you, brother, still planning to drift?" Cole's eyes found Kate, who was helping Lily prepare their bedrolls. "I'm thinking maybe I'm done drifting. Maybe it's time to stay still for a while, see what grows when you plant roots. In Clearwater Valley, if I'm welcome there." "You know you are," Kate said quietly. She'd been listening, of course. "That homestead needs work. Fences to mend, barn, to repair, fields to plant. Could use a man who knows which end of a hammer to hold." "I know a bit about hammering," Cole admitted. "And I know a bit about being alone," Kate said. "I'm not sure I want to be an expert at it anymore." Lily signed something emphatic to her mother, who laughed. "What did she say?" Thomas asked. "She said Cole should stop being stupid and just stay already because she wants to teach him more sign language and he's too slow a learner to leave now." Cole signed to Lily. "I'm staying. No more drifting. Promise." The girl launched herself at him, small arms wrapping tight around his neck. Cole held her, this brave, fierce child who'd survived more than most adults ever would, and felt something in his chest crack open and start bleeding warmth instead of pain. They reached the homestead at sunset 5 days after leaving Cheyenne. The place looked smaller than Cole remembered, more fragile, but also more precious. Kate sat her horse in the yard, staring at her home like she couldn't quite believe it was still there. "It's standing," she said softly. "I half expected to find it burned." "Mrs. Talbot and her grandson took good care of it," Thomas said. "Grant made sure of that." They dismounted. Stretched, travel-sore muscles looked around at what needed doing. The list was long. Fence rails down, barn door hanging, crooked garden needing tilling, and planting 100 small repairs that accumulated when a place stood empty even for a few weeks. "I should go," Thomas said. "Let you get settled." "Stay for supper at least," Kate offered. "It's the least we can do after everything." So Thomas stayed, and they cooked a simple meal in the cabin that felt warm despite the years of cold that had soaked into its walls. Lily chattered in sign language about her plans for the garden, the chickens she wanted to raise, the horse she hoped to get someday. Kate translated, smiling at her daughter's enthusiasm, hope creeping back into her expression. After they ate, Thomas stood to leave. He clasped Cole's hand, pulled him into a brief, hard embrace. "Take care of them," Thomas said. "With my life. And take care of yourself. You've earned some peace, brother. So have you." Thomas mounted his horse, looked down at the 3 of them standing together in the cabin doorway. "You know, for people who went through hell together, you look surprisingly like a family." "Maybe that's what hell does," Cole said. "Burns away everything that doesn't matter, leaves only what's essential." "Then I hope you hold on to what's essential and never let go." Thomas touched his hat brim. "I'll write when I'm settled. Maybe visit next year, see how you're all doing." "You better," Kate said. "Someone needs to tell embarrassing stories about Cole from when he was young." Thomas laughed. "Oh, I've got plenty of those." He rode away into the dusk, taking with him 3 years of distance, and leaving behind something like reconciliation. Cole watched until his brother disappeared over the ridge, then turned to find Kate and Lily waiting. "Well," Kate said. I suppose we should talk about sleeping arrangements. I'll take the barn, Cole offered. Fix it up, make it comfortable. You could take the cabin, I could take the barn. Kate, this is your home. You and Lily stay in the cabin where you're safe and warm. And you freeze in a drafty barn. That seems fair. She crossed her arms, expression stubborn. We could build an addition, nothing fancy, just a room attached to the cabin. Give everyone proper space. That would take weeks. Then we have weeks. It's April, winter's over. We've got time to do things right. Kate's voice softened. Cole, I'm not asking you to stay out of pity or obligation. I'm asking because I want you here. Lily wants you here. We're better together than apart, and I think you know that. Cole looked at the cabin, small and weathered but solid. He thought about the life that could be built here, the mornings waking to purpose, the evenings sitting by the fire with people who mattered. He thought about lighting a lantern not from grief, but from joy, a beacon saying, "Come home," instead of, "Please help." I know that, he said finally. I've known it since the night I first saw your light burning on that barn roof. Just took me a while to admit it. Kate smiled, real and unguarded. Then let's get to work. This place won't fix itself. They worked through spring and into summer, rebuilding what had been damaged and creating what had never existed. Cole constructed the addition with careful attention to detail, making sure the walls were tight and the roof sound. Kate planted the garden, coaxing life from earth that had been neglected too long. Lily helped everywhere, her hands, learning the work of the homestead, her signs becoming more fluid as Cole's understanding improved. Neighbors began stopping by, tentative at first, but growing bolder as word spread about Blackwell's conviction. The Talbots came with fresh bread and news from town. The Chens returned from temporary exile with seeds for the garden and stories about rebuilding their own place. Mrs. Abernathy, who Cole had never met but heard stories about, arrived with a stern lecture about proper nutrition and 3 jars of preserved peaches. The isolation Kate had endured for 6 months evaporated like morning frost under sun. The community that had abandoned her returned, some with apologies, some with excuses, all of them eventually welcome, because holding grudges took energy better spent on living. In July, Cole finished the addition. It had a proper bed, a desk, a window that looked out over the valley. Kate inspected it with the critical eye of someone who knew construction, nodded approval. It's good work, solid. Should last a few decades if we maintain it properly. Kate repeated. I like the sound of that. Lily signed something from the doorway, grinning. She says, when are you two gonna stop dancing around what's obvious and just get married already? Kate translated, blushing. Cole looked at Lily. That obvious, huh? The girl nodded vigorously, signed something else. She says she asked you months ago if you were going to be her father, and you said if she wanted you to be. Well, she wants you to be. Officially. Kate's voice was soft. And so do I, if you're interested in that particular arrangement. Cole crossed to Kate, took her hands in his. They were work-roughened, scarred from months of fighting and surviving, the most beautiful hands he'd ever seen. Kate Brennan, I came to this valley as a drifter with nothing to offer but a rifle and some surveying skills. You gave me purpose. You gave me family. You gave me a reason to stop running and start building. So yes, I'm interested in that arrangement. I'm interested in waking up here every morning, working this land beside you, teaching Lily everything I know, growing old, watching that garden bloom every spring. That's a pretty speech. I mean every word. Kate's eyes glistened. Then I suppose we should make it official. Though fair warning, I'm terrible at planning weddings and I refuse to wear anything impractical. We could get married at the church in Clearwater. Small ceremony, just friends and family. Cole smiled. And you can wear whatever you want as long as you show up. When? September. Give us time to finish the harvest, settle into the rhythms of the place. September, Kate agreed. She kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. Lily cheered silently, signing celebration. Signing, finally signing home. September arrived painted in gold and amber, the valley dressed in autumn colors. The wedding took place at the small church in Clearwater, witnessed by 40 people who'd learned that courage sometimes looked like a widow refusing to quit and a drifter deciding to stay. Thomas rode in from Oregon, clean-shaven and clear-eyed, working as an engineer for a mining operation that actually valued honesty. He stood as Cole's best man gave a speech about second chances and brothers who found their way back to each other. Mrs. Talbot cried through the entire ceremony. Mrs. Chen provided flowers from her restored garden. Marshall Grant made the trip from Cheyenne to see the case's happy ending in person. Lily, wearing a new dress that Kate had sewn by lamplight over many evenings, signed the ceremony for her mother's benefit, translating spoken words into fluid motion. When the preacher pronounced Cole and Kate husband and wife, the girl threw her arms around both of them, creating a knot of family that felt permanent and right. The reception happened at the homestead table set up in the yard. Food shared potluck-style music from a fiddle player who knew old songs about love and loss and survival. People danced, told stories, celebrated not just a wedding, but a victory over corruption and fear. As evening fell, Kate excused herself, walked to the barn, climbed to the roof. Cole followed, found her standing where she'd stood for 6 months, lighting a lantern. "You're still lighting it," he said. "Of course, but it means something different now." Kate touched the glass chimney warm with flame. Before this was a signal for help that never came. A vigil for the dead. A promise to never forget. And now it's a welcome home. A light so you always know where to return. She looked at him, lamplight painting her face in warm tones. Daniel deserved to be remembered. He was a good man who died trying to protect what we built together. But I'm not frozen in that grief anymore. I'm living again, loving again, building something new, while honoring what was. Cole stood beside her, looking out over the valley. Below, their friends and neighbors celebrated music and laughter rising into the night. The land spread out dark and peaceful, dotted with lights from other homesteads, other families who'd reclaimed their right to exist here. "He'd be proud of you," Cole said. "Of how you fought, how you survived, how you made sure his death meant something. He'd like you too, I think. He always said the measure of a man was what he did when no one was watching, when there was no reward except knowing you'd done right. You rode into a stranger's fight because it was the right thing to do. That would have mattered to him." They stood in comfortable silence, the lantern burning steady between them. Kate's hand found Cole's fingers intertwining naturally. "Cole, yeah. Thank you for seeing my light, for being the help I called for staying when it would have been easier to leave. Thank you for being worth staying for." He pulled her close, felt her lean into him. "For showing me that home isn't a place you're born into. It's a place you choose that chooses you back." Below, Lily emerged from the house, looked up at them on the barn roof, signed something. "She says, 'Stop being romantic and come dance with her before all the good songs are over.'" Kate translated, smiling. Cole signed back, "Coming. Save me the next dance too." They climbed down together, joined the celebration, danced with Lily and each other and anyone who asked. The party lasted until past midnight, until people drifted home to their own beds and their own lives, leaving Cole and Kate and Lily standing in the yard, surrounded by the debris of happiness. "I should clean this up," Kate said, surveying the tables and dishes. "Tomorrow," Cole said. "Tonight, we just rest." So they went inside, the three of them, the addition already feeling like it had always been part of the cabin. Lily hugged them both. "Good night" disappeared behind her curtain, signed "I love you" in the lamplight before sleep claimed her. Kate and Cole stood by the fire, holding each other, too tired for anything but gratitude. "We did it," Kate whispered. "We survived. We won. We built something real from ashes and stubbornness." "You did it," Cole corrected. "I just helped." "We did it together. That's the only way it could have worked." She pulled back to look at him. "Promise me something." "Anything. Promise me we keep fighting together. Whatever comes next, good or bad, we face it side by side. No more standing alone. Cole cupped her face in his hands, kissed her forehead. I promise. From now until forever, we stand together. They went to bed in their separate rooms that night, respecting tradition, even though they'd already committed to a lifetime together. But Cole lay awake for a while, listening to the sounds of the homestead, settling Kate's breathing from the main room. Lily's soft sleep signing the wind, moving through the valley like a whispered promise. He thought about the journey that had brought him here. 3 years of drifting, running from the memory of his brother drowning while Cole's rope broke. 3 years of believing he was meant to be alone, that connection was too dangerous, that caring about anything just gave the world more ways to break you. Then he'd seen a light burning on a barn roof, and everything changed. Morning came, gentle sunlight streaming through windows onto a family sleeping in peace. Cole woke first. Started coffee, began the day's work because farms didn't care about celebrations or exhaustion. The animals needed feeding, the fences needed checking, the life they'd chosen required constant attention. Kate emerged while he was milking the cow they'd bought in August, Lily trailing behind her, both of them rumpled and content. Morning, husband, Kate said, testing out the word. Morning, wife, Cole replied, liking how it sounded. Lily signed good morning, then asked if she could help with the chickens. Cole nodded, watched her skip toward the coop, all 9-year-old energy and determination. She's happy, Kate said. Really happy for the first time since Daniel died. So are you. So are you, Kate countered. She sat on a hay bale, watched him work. It's strange, isn't it? How something so terrible can lead to something so good. I'd never have met you if Daniel hadn't been murdered. Lily wouldn't have you as a father. We wouldn't have this life we're building. Doesn't make what happened to Daniel right. No, but it means his death led to justice, to change, to other families being protected. That's worth something. He'd think so anyway. Kate was quiet for a moment. I'll always love him, you know. Part of my heart is his forever. I know. I wouldn't want it any other way. Cole finished milking, stood cross to her. Love isn't a finite resource, Kate. You can love him and love me. You can honor his memory and build a future. Both things can be true. She kissed him then, sweet and lingering tasting of coffee and hope. How'd you get so wise? Met a widow who taught me that surviving isn't the same as living. Took me a while to learn the difference. They worked through the morning, the three of them finding rhythm in shared labor. Lily fed chickens and gathered eggs with careful attention. Kate worked in the garden, harvesting the last of the summer vegetables. Cole repaired a section of fence that winter had weakened, planning ahead for the cold months to come. At noon, they ate together at the table. Cole had built simple food, made rich by company. Lily chattered in sign about a nest she'd found in the barn with baby mice in it, asking if they could keep them as pets. Kate gently explained why mice in barns were fine, but mice in houses were problematic. Cole suggested they could get a cat instead, which sent Lily into excited speculation about names and colors and personality traits their future cat should have. After lunch, Kate pulled out the ledger where she tracked the homestead's finances. Cole watched her work through numbers, calculating what they'd need for winter supplies, what they could save, what investments in next year's planting made sense. We're going to be all right, Kate said finally. Not rich, but stable. If we're careful and the weather cooperates, we'll turn a profit this year for the first time since Daniel died. That's good news. It's more than good news. It's survival. It's proof that everything we fought for was worth it. She closed the ledger. Cole, when I was lighting that lantern every night calling for help, I didn't dare imagine this. A partner who sees me as equal. A home that's truly ours. A future that looks bright instead of just survivable. Neither did I, Cole admitted. I thought I'd drift forever, punishing myself for failing Thomas, for failing that widow and her sons in Missouri. Then I saw your light and thought maybe I had one more fight left in me. Turns out, it wasn't one fight. It was the beginning of everything. Evening found them on the porch, Cole had added to the cabin, watching the sun paint the valley in shades of orange and purple. Lily was drawing at their feet, her latest picture showing the three of them standing together with the homestead behind them and stars overhead. "I should light the lantern," Kate said as darkness approached. "Want company?" "Always." They climbed to the barn roof together, Lily scrambling up behind them. Kate lit the lantern with the same ceremony she'd performed for 6 months, but the meaning had transformed. This wasn't grief or desperation anymore. This was declaration. We're here. We're alive. We're home. The flame caught steady and bright. It would burn through the night, visible for miles, saying to anyone who might need it, "Here is shelter. Here is family. Here is proof that sometimes the light wins." Kate stood with Cole's arm around her waist. Lily pressed against her other side. The three of them looked out over the valley, over the land they'd fought to keep, the home they'd rebuilt from ashes, the life they'd chosen despite every reason to give up. "What are you thinking?" Cole asked. "That Daniel would approve. Of you, of this, of how we're honoring him by living fully instead of just existing." Kate's voice was strong. "And I'm thinking that 6 months ago I was drowning in grief and rage, calling for help that never came. Now I'm standing here with more help than I ever imagined possible." Lily signed something, looking up at her mother. "She says the light looks different now, happier somehow." Kate smiled. "She's right. It does." Cole thought about all the lights he'd seen in his years of drifting. Campfires and town lanterns, lighthouses and signal beacons, 1,000 points of illumination that marked human presence in the darkness. But none had called to him like Kate's light. None had promised not just survival, but transformation. "You saved me," he said quietly. "Both of you. I was dead in all the ways that mattered, just hadn't stopped moving yet. You gave me a reason to live again." "We saved each other," Kate corrected. She leaned into him, solid and warm and real. "That's how the best things work. Nobody saves anybody alone. We lift each other up, hold each other steady, keep each other's lights burning when the wind tries to kill them." They stood there until full darkness fell, the lantern glowing bright above them, the valley spread out below, holding their future in its ancient hands. Behind them, the homestead waited, every beam and board containing their struggle and their triumph. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, more reasons to keep fighting. But tonight was for standing together, for remembering how far they'd come, for lighting a lamp and knowing someone would always be there to see it. In the cabin, the fire burned low and steady. In the barn, the animals slept peaceful and safe. In the garden, seeds they'd planted waited for spring to reveal their potential. And on the barn roof, 3 people stood together, watching their light burn against the darkness, knowing that some promises were worth keeping forever, and some lights once lit would never go out again. This was home. This was family. This was what happened when you refused to quit, when you called for help loud enough and long enough that finally, miraculously, the right person heard and came running. Kate had lit a lantern every night for 6 months, and Cole had answered. Together they'd built something that couldn't be broken by corruption, or violence, or fear. Together, they'd proven that hope wasn't foolish, and love wasn't weakness, and sometimes, against all odds, the good people won. The lantern burned on, steady as a heartbeat, bright as promise, eternal as the love that had saved them all.